And hello, 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 we are live. Welcome. My name is Shin, and today I can invite you to the first Tactical Tengu Tales, kind of like Triple Tactics Tengu for people who play the modern Yu-Gi-Oh game. Um, yes, my name is Shin. I just love the Tengu Plant format, and I just wanted to talk to you about why we love the Tengu Plant format. And the goal of this podcast is to just spread love about the format, but also about retro Yu-Gi-Oh in general. And how do I do that? I invite new players that play Tengu Plant format or play other formats and just uh, talk to them about what they like, how they are, and also bring you a bit of information about what happened in Tengu Plant format in the last couple of weeks. You'll see more when you listen to that, but first I want to introduce my first guest. He's a special one because he's the first one, and also because he's can I call you the inventor of the most interesting and most played new Tengu deck since like last 1 year? About like at least I think you invented around a year ago from what I've seen. Janky, welcome.
Thanks. Hello, everyone.
Yes. Janky, I can call you the inventor of the Catsith Chaos Deck, right?
Yeah, I think I've been labbing a lot with Psycon, but I think he would give me the credit for inventing it since I was the one who wanted to play it and pushed it and everything. But he's been a lot of like input, a lot of help when it came to actually making it work.
Yes. Before I want to introduce you, I got something from a friend that I want to show the stream and the people who are live on YouTube because this here is streamed live on Twitch. And if you want to tune in, you can always tune in on Twitch. But of course, you can also watch it on YouTube, maybe on YouTube right now. But why should you watch it and why am I a good person? I have a clip that I got sent from a friend, and I will just show it to you one
I want to
second.
real
It's
quick shout out
super
the person I
quick.
retained for coaching,
I hope you can
Shinuslaw,
hear it.
who was without a doubt the greatest coach I've ever
Yes.
worked
I
with.
think I
He's
need
so fucking
to
helpful.
unmute if I can hear it. So
Okay. If not,
yeah, I
maybe
can hear
someone in chat. Okay. Yes. At least someone said basically, "Hey, Shinuslaw is the best coach I've ever worked with in my life." So
it.
that's the reason why you need to listen to it. But enough to talk about me. Janky, who are you? Can you tell the people a bit about you?
Well, yeah, I'm a 28-year-old from Sweden, and as Shinuslaw mentioned, I innovated the Catsith Chaos Deck in Tengu Plant format. I guess that's the thing that is the main thing known about me here, at least in the Yu-Gi-Oh spectrum. And I've been playing Yu-Gi-Oh on and off since, well, obviously I played when I was a kid, but I really started in 2011 and then played until 2015 on and off. So
Yes.
that's me. And then I started
Nice.
playing now in May 2023.
Okay, May 2023. And can you tell us a bit, like, we're talking about the Tango Plant format, the September 2011 format that I know you about and I know that you play. Why did you get into the Tango format or in retro Yu-Gi-Oh in general?
Well, that's a good question, actually. I don't remember how it started. I know Saikan, we talked about the project he had where he tried to make his own retro format, you can call it, like Mirage, he called it. And he tried to make different decks works. And he didn't focus on like 2011 or something like that. So he grabbed every interesting card and tried to like balance the game around every archetype being viable, kind of. So that's how I realized, oh, you can play this game still, because I wasn't up to date at all about Yu-Gi-Oh, and I don't know much about modern Yu-Gi-Oh. But then I found out, like, I don't remember. I know I watched TCG Rewind's stream when he played at, like, there was a Tengu Rumble, or not Rumble, Scramble, or, well, Tengu Takeover or something like that. And I watched it, and I got intrigued because I didn't know Retro Yu-Gi-Oh was played at all. Basically, I've heard about Edison, but I didn't know that there was like active tournaments. So it was just kind of a YouTube recommendation, I guess.
That's great. Shout outs to TCG Rewind, I guess. I think
Yeah,
the
for sure.
biggest Tango Plant content creator right now. Yes, that's great to hear. Did you try other formats? You said, yeah, you heard Edison, and do you have like a reason why you, at least from what I know, actively play more Tengu format than the other ones?
Yeah, for sure. I don't think I played Edison before I played Tengu. I know I played like two Edison tournaments, just Quinning sending me like a link to the Discord and be like, you can join now. And I was like, okay, cool. And then I played my bad X-Saber Edison deck and just lost. But when I played Tengu mainly because I like the card pool, and I think there's nothing wrong with Edison. I just prefer having even more cards because I really like the cards that got released between 2010 and 2011. Like I like Mist Valley and Phoenix and like all the Yankee archetypes that just exist here.
Ah, that's where your name is from. I see. Yeah. Yeah. I can totally understand that. I mean, I'm the host and I'm mostly playing the same format, but I think we all as retro community should work together. So I'm always happy to hear about other format that people tried and people played. Have you played anything else besides like Edison a bit or Tengu?
Yeah, I played one tournament of Firewater,
Mhm.
and I liked it in concept because I could play Obedience School, and I'm a big fan of Unicorns, so I wanted to try to make it work. But I'm not sure that it's as viable as I was hoping. I like as soon as I started labbing the deck, I wanted to include the raccoons, and I didn't really want to play the raccoons. I wanted to play like Cerebral and
Ah,
Cats. Well, I couldn't make Cats work there either, so I moved back to Tengu quite quickly. But I think there's potential in different formats, but I really like synchros mainly, so that's
yeah.
my focus, I guess.
Yeah, it's interesting. We got a comment from chat from Ryan Swipen, who said he also likes Trish, Vela, Maxi. I personally, as a host, I chose Tango Plan format because I love Pot of Duality. I think it brings so much consistency to all these janky, mid-rangey, control-y decks that make them a lot more viable. And that's like the decks I always like to play, to be
Yeah, for
honest.
sure. I really like Path of Duality, and I also like hand traps because it creates another dimension of the deck where you can't just play Heavy Storm and then no, you can do anything you want because there's always in the back of your mind both Gores, of course, but also like, can they have Veiler? Can I go for the OTK? I think that makes it more interesting.
Yes, I agree. So before we talk a bit more about you and your deck and maybe your other decks you want to talk about, I have a small section that's called "What Happened in Tango" because maybe people who watch this know, maybe people who watch this don't know that there are a lot of like Tango Plant online tournaments, but also offline tournaments, and we just want to show you what other people play. If you take a look at the screen, you should now be able to see the news. You can't see the news. Perfect. I now you can see the news. Okay. Perfect. So what happened? The first thing that happened, maybe you've heard about this YCS Vegas. I guess Janky, you weren't in Vegas because you're not from the US. I also weren't, but I was excited, having such a big, like I think 100 teams, so 100 Tengu Plan players, 100 Edison players, 100 Gold players playing together. Get that was the biggest retro tournament ever? Question mark.
Yeah, I have no idea, but
Yeah,
it
okay,
was
yeah, I
massive
saw
at
that.
least.
I honestly, I know that there was a super big Edison tournament at the Nationals in the US, but that was like insanely great. And for us as a Tengu Plant community, I think we are extremely happy because that was the second time ever we got recognized. I think there was one tournament before 2022 in Dortmund, like a bigger Tengu Plant tournament, but that's the first big one since then. So, I am happy. And I took a look and tried to see what decks topped. So there is not perfect information because there was like not really like that many YouTube videos, and there was no official coverage on the tournament. Um, but we know a bit about which deck tops, which decks did well. And yes, thank you, Ryan Swipen. YCS Doma 2022 had around 90 players. Yes, so a bit less, but also pretty good. So what we knew is that the winning team, so the tournament was 3v3, one Edison, one Plant, one Gold player. So even if your Tengu player lost all games, you could still win the tournament, I guess. Don't think it's too likely, but you could. And the winning deck was Tengu Plants. What a surprise, right, Janky? Tengu
Yeah, I'm
was
not
good.
too surprised. I expected a lot of Tengu Plants in the tournament too.
Yeah, same here. I can tell you, I talked to two players, two Edison, like one Edison player, and I showed it. I also talked to MBT, and I thought because of that TG is a great meta call because TG is like has a great meta versus plans. So I told people, hey, I think playing TG with Guild Drain is a good idea. Yeah. So one thing that I found interesting that I wanted to ask you, I don't have the list up because we only have like some YouTube videos that like show the deck list, and that's not nice to show on stream and even on podcast if you just want to listen to it. But the winning plant list had interesting choices. So it only played 3 lights, I think 1 Veiler and 2 Rayos, but the deck still played BLS and Sorcerer.
Yeah, it was pretty surprising. I know I looked at that list, and also the side deck was very, like, I don't know what to call it, streamlined. It had like a lot of free ups in the side deck.
Yeah, it seemed like a modern Yugi player, right? Because these in the like advanced constructed tournaments, you often play like 3 Ash Blossom, 3 Gozen Match. I don't know, like Gozen Match are even at 1, I think, but always 3 offs. So I also put on 3 Leeching the Light, which I've never seen before, to be honest.
Yeah, it was quite interesting. I think it's hard to tell, obviously. Like they won and they had experience with the deck, but I think that's when people from other format, especially if it's come from modern, you think of the deck in a different light, and that could be good, but also it could be inexperience with the format sometimes, where you like think, okay, this card is super good, I'm gonna put 3 of that in my side deck, but then when it comes to siding, you don't really have space because. Especially in Tengu Plant, I think it's very hard to take out a lot of cards and then bring in other cards.
I agree. I'm the 2 off kind of guy. I often play 2 off.
Yes.
Except Mystical Space Typhoon. MST is always 3 off because too many people play stun decks. Yes, the other thing that we've seen that I thought is interesting because you are here is we had a Catsith deck going 7-0 on Swiss. I think the team bubbled, so didn't make top cut, but he won every game. And he just played the spy build.
Yeah, I watched that video too. I think it was interesting. I asked about it in the comments, and he told me he would play the same build because he had 2 Kushano and 1 Cerebral. And personally, I've tried Cerebral on and off, and I have always, like, in theory, it could be good, but I never made it work. So it was kind of interesting.
Yes. Yes, I also like that they played bottomless in the side. I don't think I've seen that before. I'm a big proponent of bottomless trap pool in this format. One of the only ones, it seems.
Yes, Saikon has always like told me he's very hyped about bottomless, and I've tried it in the side deck too. I think it's good, but sometimes like it's mainly a space thing. I think if I could play bottomless for free, I would play it, but you usually want other cards.
Yes, and the other deck, I found the list at least was like an agent list that was in top 4 with double Birdman and double Veiler and 3 Herald of Orange Light. That said, hey, I don't like effects.
I also that one. I watched that too. I think especially it was interesting not seeing traps because in my mind, Dust should be played in pretty much any deck. So. And also, I think if I remember correctly from the video, he said that he usually sided out 1 Birdman. So I guess it would be interesting to ask him if you would play the deck again, would you cut a Birdman for a Dust Shoot, for example?
Yeah, that's a good thing. Maybe like asking these people. Maybe I'll get 1 or 2 of these on here soon. So what I've seen in Top Cut, I think it's not super surprising. I found 7 out of the 8 decks. I'm not sure what the 8th is. Maybe someone knows. If you know, you can write it in the comment. You can write it in chat. We have a few people in here. One shout out Kelly C also for joining here. We have 2 agents, 2 plans, GK, TG, and Chaos Heroes. And honestly, these are kind of like the deck that everyone said are the top decks in the format. Plus Catsith went 7-0. Which is maybe like the new 6th deck in the format. Not saying that's the 6th strongest deck, but like, in the top 6 deck for a lot of people. Do you think it's surprising that these people went on to top cut?
No, not really, especially since I believe these are the strongest decks, like part of the strongest decks at least. But also when it comes to a free with free format, there's no room for people to like properly experiment because you don't want to be the person who brings out like a weird deck and then you lose us and then everyone in your team
Yeah.
is like, oh yeah, that's a good choice. Especially since we don't have 98 like proper Tengu main players in the game right now.
Mhm.
We don't have that many people in the community, so you should expect that a lot of the people who played prepared like for this event specifically.
Yeah, yeah.
So they would most likely bring out something that is proven and that people have worked on.
Y-
You don't want to be the worm player who then like goes 0-7 and your team is gonna be like, oh, why
Yeah.
didn't you play agents?
Yes,
So
yes. I can say the people who've asked me, hey, I'm not a good Tango player. I play other retro. What should I play? I always said either play agents, gravekeepers, or TG, because I think agent is the best deck most likely, and it's one of the easiest decks to play, at least like on a good level. Not sure if you agree with me, but I think it's like not
yeah, I
the
agree with
yeah
that.
yeah, and I think Gravekeeper and TG would be maybe good meta picks in that tournament. Also, if you played Edison before, you know a bit how to grind and how when to flip traps and all that stuff, and that's the most important skill you need to have with these decks, in my opinion. Plans plays a bit differently, so maybe Plans is not the
Yeah, I
best deck
think
to
Plants
start.
is a very hard deck to play
Yeah,
properly. And
I
also,
agree.
I think TG is like I think it could have been a good meta call, but I also think it's a lot harder than playing agents or gravekeepers, probably.
Oh, oh yeah, yeah. I just don't want to put myself up too high, but only one person topped the big tournaments with TG yet. I think that's the person who played TG all his life. It's me because it
Yeah.
was cheap. That's the reason I always played it when I was younger. Um, yeah, that was interesting, but interesting, especially to see like these real life tournaments. We can go through a bit through the online tournament that happens. We had a Tengu Rumble. Tengu Rumble is like a multi-day tournament we have in the Tengu Plant Town server. Shout out if you want to play. Please join that server and the other one we mentioned later on. You have like 3 days to play a game. We had 32 players this time. I think it was one of the biggest ones. So you see, that's kind of the amount of people you get for the non super highly competitive tournaments. And the deck like distribution was quite diverse. I didn't have the full breakdown yet, but we had like 3 Falcopard, 3 Agent, 3 Catsith, 2 Gravekeeper, 2 TGs. I think only 1 plant. So you see in this tournament, people don't often bring like the super top deck. They play stuff they like. I played like Volcanic Burn, for example, which is not a good deck. But I just wanted to play it. And in Top Cut, we have Infernity, Agent, Piper, Chaos, and Worms, Janky.
Yeah, that's
That's
I would love to see the Worms deck list.
yes.
Is it out yet or?
It's not yet the finals. We're
Okay,
still
yeah, yeah,
playing,
yeah.
and Worms is in the final with Infernity, and I just know that the Worms play deck plays Kaiku in the main deck because my friend played Piper Chaos against Worms, and then Worms just put in Kaiku. He said, "What? What do I do against this? What? Kaiku is kind of an ODK." And then game 2, there were like 2 Pachis. And, and there's like almost no out to Pachi in the Piper Chaos deck. So, yeah, that was fun. I'm pretty interested also in the Infernity list because I honestly don't like Infernity myself as a deck because I don't like the playstyle, but I think it's pretty strong and people don't seem to play it too often.
Yeah, I think I don't have any experience with Infernity, but when I look at the combos and the deck itself, it looks like a deck that should perform better than it does. But nobody really plays it, and so it's not that surprising. It's also probably a pretty hard deck to pull off properly, but
Yeah.
I would expect us to see more Infernity in the future, probably, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think so too. Not sure about Worms. Worms has the most insane trap card in the game, but
Yeah, for
the
sure.
rest is, in my opinion, it's not bad. It's like playable, and you see it can even win a big tournament, but I'm not sure if it's consistent enough to win like a lot of big tournaments.
Yeah.
Okay,
At the same time, Worms could play like maybe in the future someone finds a version that only plays like the good worm cards and then chaos or something.
Yeah,
Who
and tour
knows?
guide. I thought
But
about that. I
I
thought
know it's
that most
interesting.
likely that's a better one. So, the other big server we have is called Tournament Nexus. Tournament Nexus hosts tournaments once a week, every Friday at 6:15 CET. And this time only 13 players join, and I think so it's often between 10 and 25 players, so it just depends on what day you're in there. The winner of these tournaments qualify for like a big tournament at the end of the season where you can win prizes, and this tournament seemed a lot more competitive, kind of like from the decks who topped. I put in Tengu Plant, Dragoonity, Catsith Chaos, and Gravekeeper. You also topped. Congrats to getting top
Thank
4.
you.
I have the deck list here. We can take a short look at that. At least 3 of them, because the 4th one didn't load, for example. But that's the Tengu Plant list. Honestly, I don't think it's too interesting.
Yeah, it
Just
was
the Tengu
pretty
Plant.
standard
Yes.
as far as I
So
remember.
let's just look at the winning deck list, because the winning deck list is my thing. It's Gravekeepers, and honestly, I, as a Gravekeepers player, don't really understand it. Maybe you have some insights here.
I don't understand it either. I'm not gonna lie, because I lost against it in Top Cut, and I was like baffled when I saw the Infernity randomizer. I was like, what is this deck? And I think like partly the Infernity randomizer threw me off, and there was also like one of those things where, okay, there's 42 cards in the main deck. What's cut? And then when I saw this, I realized, okay, so 1-1 is cut, and like,
Yeah. Yes. So from what I've talked to Birth No Purse, who won that tournament, and they said that they always played like before Tengu. I think it's called. It's not Toronto. It's the one before. I forgot. Like an earlier format, and there you always play 3 Descendant. So they said, okay, this is my standard build. I always play 3 Descendant, and I like it for the randomizer. So just play randomizer, and then they just threw this deck together. I only had like 15 minutes to build it, and they were not sure if they 100% would play the same cards again. But I found it interesting, because most of the Gravekeeper decks that were winning were like the Royal Tribute 101 Turbo decks, right?
yeah.
And this is now a normal trap version. I personally think that this could be a good deck, but could be improved a bit. I don't hate the randomizer, but I think randomizer, I would play it with less monsters and more like Rite of Spirits, because randomizer likes if you set cards. But yeah, that's
Yeah, I agree with that. I think if you're gonna play randomizer, probably cutting Descendants and playing Rite of Spirit is the best option.
that's me. But it's interesting. You see, even if you like want to play something new and that hasn't been seen, you can top. The second list I want to have a short look is not your list, but it's Catsith. I find it super funny that there was one tournament, I'm not sure where it was, that Gravekeeper Spy worked for a Catsith player. Now everyone plays Gravekeeper Spy. I think like 2 months ago, I knew 2 people. I know you and Psychon were labbing it a bit, and my friend Alugritz, who also sometimes plays in these tournaments, he also always played Spy because he loves Spy. Uh, and
It was actually Gustafsson who, well, I'm not sure
okay.
who like first came up with it, but Gustafsson was the person who played it in the what is called the Toronto Winter Champion
Yeah.
Cup,
Yeah.
whatever the championships. So the fun. I was very like surprised when I watched this specific build, because I realized not only is there only 2 tour guides, which I find kind of surprising, but also there's a lot of monsters, like one extra maxi. I think 20 monsters is like the max you want to play,
Yeah.
and having to play like maxi and then like every monster count makes it kind of big. Like I wonder how this deck played against Great. Well, I saw the the Great
Yeah.
match, because if you have a lot of monsters, you're gonna struggle more against Tribute.
Yeah, which is weird,
Uh,
because I think personally, as a person who played Grave before, I think Royal Tribute is pretty bad against Catsith, like against most of the Catsith decks, because you don't want to discard the cat. You kind of don't want to discard Kushano. Maxi doesn't matter because it's dead anyway against Gravekeeper, and Chaos Sork and BLS can be strong, but often are also not the strongest cards against Gravekeepers. So I think it's pretty interesting that they decided to play it like this. Um, but it
Oh,
worked.
I just realized. Never mind. This is not the. I just watched you accidentally cropped the picture because there's gonna be free tour guides. So I was wrong about that.
Ah, yeah.
Like there's some. Oh right, there was two maxis, so that's where the monster count came from.
Yeah.
Because I used to watch the picture you put out there, and I was like, wait,
Okay.
how does this make sense? So yeah,
Ah.
there's gonna be another tour guide, and then Dust Shoot also, and free realities.
Yeah, yes, if you look at the site, I think interesting to play the third spy and the descendant against some of the grindy decks. I don't hate the decision, to be honest.
Yeah, I watched. I don't like main decking it, especially because you don't have the space for it. I think because this version played two maxis, but yeah, if you have another spy and then descendant, that's a lot of monsters, I'd say.
Yes, yes, I agree. Interesting. And now I want to look at your deck real quickly because you top with Dragoonity, a deck that you've been trying to play for a long time. And can you even call it Dragoonity with like one Dux only? Dux was like the big Dragoonity card.
Yeah, I would. Okay, so I think if I would play this deck, I would really want another Dux because I notice a lot of situations, and I noticed it before. I'm just coping on trying to limit the engine, but you kind of need the two ducks at least because there's a lot of situations where you play the ducks and then it get warning or something and then you would like another follow-up play, but I still think not playing the like triple ducks is the correct choice, and especially like even if you play three ducks, I think you want the legionnaire in the main deck because legionnaire not only can it out Christia, which is very impactful, it can make the Trishula plays a lot more streamlined because especially if you just summon Drago and then take control for one turn, you can just search the Legionnaire and then make the Trishula. It's very strong.
Oh, nice. I never thought of Trishula. But yeah, you can not only pop monsters with Legionnaire, what I did when I was not a good player. Um, long time ago. I have a question for you, maybe like two questions for you, one from me and one from chat. Let's start with the one from chat. Why do so many Dragunti players do not play Trident Dragion? I think it's Dragion. You know the
Yeah, I don't know how it's pronounced, but I think the reason is you don't really make it. And the only reason I play Trident Dragon in this version because I only play one Dux, which means I can cut one Mariana, so I only play one because extra deck space is really hard to make work in this deck. And I think that's the main reason. Like if you could have 20 cards in your extra deck, you would obviously play it. But it doesn't really come up because it's such an investment unless you have a card like Malefic Stardust Dragon. So I think if you play your side Malefic Stardust, you kind of want the Trident Dragon. But otherwise, like I don't think I've ever summoned the Trident Dragon, like actually made a play with it.
I think I did it like once while I was playing the deck in the Cope version way back in the day, in the
Yeah.
bad version where I didn't have tour guides because too expensive.
The problem with Trident Dragon 2 in this format is if you make it and then you pop two cards, attack, and they drop Gores, you just can't do anything. But you could obviously make OTK lines with the Drago, but if you have Drago, you probably have a red dice to summon it with, and then you have another dragon, so you could just OTK without making the Trident in that case.
Yeah, a Necro in chat said he played against this tournament in real life today and saw how sick Red Mat is. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's such a strong card.
I think Red Mat is a reason that Smashing Crowd is not a bad side deck. Sometimes. Maybe maybe I'm coping.
I think just when it comes to Red Eyes, I have had a lot of discussions with Sycam because he's still in the firm believer of two Red Eyes. But in my mind, the reason why I cut down on the Dragoonity cards I play is because the strongest opener Dragoonity has, which is not like obviously Future Fusion or such, is just sending down a Drago Red Med and then summoning the Red Med in end phase. Because not like basically no deck can handle a first turn 2,800 meter. It's just too strong.
Unless you play Necro, because he plays Smashing in this main
deck. yeah, sure. but that forces out, like, so many times people have forced to play, like, Dark Hole on my one Red Med, because it's just such a threat in itself.
Yes. One question I had before we move on, I didn't want to talk that much about this deck, but I guess it's one of your decks, is why don't you side third Drago? Is it not needed?
Yeah. But before I tried to like play the free Dragos and everything because I thought it was super strong against Chaos and Agents, and it still is. But the problem is if you have Drago and they make the gachi, you just can't do anything with Drago. So you don't really want that many Dragos, I'd say. But it's possible. Like I prefer to have another, like I hide my body as a shield against agents instead, and I think it could be more impactful. But I'm not sure. Like this deck is not optimized at all. And also, but by the way, just for the viewers, that this is a deck I tried to make work, but it's basically Cycles deck,
Yeah.
I'd say, because he was the one who made it work the first time when he played Red Med and Tour Guide. I think Tour Guide is what makes this deck work. Basically, it's
Yeah,
just
I
so smooth.
agree. I agree. And I think we talked about it a bit, or I talked with Psychon. That's the reason no one played like this, because Turgot was so expensive. And the Turgot
Yeah.
players just played the good Turgot decks. Uh, yes, I think that was kind of it, what we had in Tengu. I mean, we'll have other topics to talk about. We do have some time, but I just want to tell everyone who wants to watch this and wants to play another tournament, we have the Toronto time capsule code. Toronto time capsule. I think it's called TDC is how we just call it. Number 15.
Yeah.
It's March 8th at 6:15 p.m. CET. So like every Friday you can jump in. It's also the Friday after. And the next big tournament where you can win prize money in the Tengu Plant Town server is the Tengu Mania 7 on March 23. I guess, Janky, you'll play in that one, right?
Yeah, for sure. I'm always down to play. Like as long as it's a single day tournament, I'm in for sure. I'm still a bit skeptical about, like, I played a lot of multi-day tournaments, but I always lose steam and like
Yeah.
can't really keep up my interest for such a long time.
Yes, I can see that. It's sometimes a bit similar for me, but I also like playing one match every 3 to 4 days, so it's less commitment. Because if you
Yeah, fair
have
enough.
other stuff you want to do, but yeah, join these tournaments. It's fun. And if you in Tangomania, if you win or come into the top 8, top 10, depending on who plays, you may even qualify for the big Tango World Championships. Yay! Becoming world champion is always good. But let's talk about the next topics. We do have other stuff to talk about today. So the next section I have for this podcast thing, I call it bullet time. I think I stole it from another podcast, but I don't know from what, to be honest. So I'm sorry to the person I stole it from. Basically, I want the viewers, the listeners, to know you a bit better. So I ask you 10 questions and you just need to answer them fast in a few sentences, right? Just say, maybe you can just say it in one word, but maybe you explain it a bit more, depending on what you want
Yeah,
to do.
sounds good.
So 10 questions. Let's see what kind of person you are. The first question is, what is your favorite card in Tengu Plant format?
That has to be Fabled Unicorn, I'd say.
Based answer, I guess. Based answer. Even played in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Not sure if you knew that.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
Yeah, Joshua Schmidt.
Such a cool card.
Joshua Schmidt won a YCS with Fabled Unicorn on stream. He don't
That's
think he
awesome.
summoned in the final, but yeah, he did. It's great. You kind of answered my second question already, but I still ask multi-day or single-day events. What do you like more?
Yeah, it's a single day event for me.
Yeah. I can see that. I think a lot of people would say the same. So the next question is also how these tournaments are played. Do you like double elimination or Swiss more?
I think I need to expand. I prefer Swiss a lot more, but if everyone played as fast as I did, I would prefer double elim. So if everything was done in 30 minutes, I had preferred double elim, but Swiss is preferable here.
I can tell you, I think the second or third online tournament I've ever played was Tengu Mania 4, which I won. I still don't know how I did it, but we played a double elim. That was the last or second to last Tengu Mania double elim, and I luckily won in the winners bracket, and then I waited for 3 or 4 hours. There was like 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. somewhere around that, and we said, okay, let's not continue. Let's play tomorrow the rest, because it still was my turn. So yeah.
Yeah, I think the last Tengu Plant takeover, it ended in like 3 a.m. or something. It was very long. So
maybe I know the answer for the fourth one already, but if you could ban one card from the format, which would it be?
Yeah, does choose. No
Yeah,
questions asked.
yeah. I think I know you enough to know that
Yeah.
would be your answer. Trap Dash Shoot is a card I also don't like that much. So, what do you think is the strongest deck in this format?
Yeah, I think that's clear agent for me.
Okay,
It's just such a strong deck.
so everyone play agents, right? And then I win with Gravekeepers.
Yeah, true.
That's a good about Tengu Plant format. You can counter pick a lot of the good decks. What do you think is the most underrated deck in the format?
I think it's Dragoonity right now, at least.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Also, could have guessed that that will come from you. I personally tested the deck and I nearly played it for Tengu Mania. I can tell you, but I wasn't up to it, unfortunately. Question number 7 is kind of similar because I'm lazy with thinking of questions. What is the most overrated deck in the format for you?
I think that's a hard question because, like, no matter what I'm gonna say, it's gonna like.
Yes,
I
I
think
want
it
people to
might.
hate you. Yes, I
Yeah,
want people
yeah,
to
yeah,
hate
yeah.
you.
I think it might be Gravekeeper, not because Gravekeeper is a bad deck per se, but because, like, for example, the reaction that oh yeah, I can play Gravekeeper and win against Agent, which could be true, but I still think like the deck is not as strong as people think it is, even with Tribute. But yeah, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying I think it's overrated.
Okay, and yeah, I love that we are here. We could make a whole podcast about it because I think it's underrated a bit because I think it's stronger it's stronger than people think it is, but it heavily like the big issue with Gravekeeper, in my opinion, as a person who played it a lot, is it's one of the easiest decks to side against by far.
Yeah,
So if it
that's why I think it's overrated. Because, for example, if people start playing Nobleman,
don't
like if Gravekeeper becomes a real threat for as a deck, people could start playing Nobleman,
yeah.
and then that would be rough, I'd say.
Yes, I remember. I think it was yesterday in the Toronto Time Capsule tournament. I think the Catsith player sided Nobleman and played Nobleman on a spy. Game is kind of
Yeah.
over already. Yeah.
I play Nobleman in my Catsith side deck usually, and it's just because not only do I destroy Gravekeeper with the card, but also like unfairly because I think Catsith is very good against X-Sabers, but if you side Nobleman against X-Sabers, it also like just falls out of favor because Hamster. I think Hamster is kind of necessary to make the deck work, because otherwise you don't really have any like playmaking consistency. But yeah, I think Nobleman as a card makes those decks overrated, even though
Yes.
they're not properly like they're not bad decks
Yeah,
necessarily. But
yeah, I know what you're saying. So who would you say is the goat of Tengu Plant format?
I mean, for me, that's gonna be Saigon, because not only like I've talked a lot about like a lot with him, so I know his mindset. I know like how big brain his ideas are. But also, if you look at results, ever since he started playing the format, he's like consistently performed. Which I can't say the same thing about myself, but Saigon has just won a lot and topped a lot.
Yes, I can understand that answer. Maybe sometime in the future I'll give my answer here too, but not today because I don't want to have any enemies. Right, as the host, I
Fair
shouldn't.
enough.
So the ninth question is a question specifically for you. Who would win a national Tengu Plant battle, Sweden or Germany?
That's a good question, actually, because there's a lot of strong German players, and there's a lot of strong. Well, I don't know if there's that many strong Swedish players, because I don't know that many. But the people I know they're good players. But I think it's a hard like the well, actually, never mind. I'm gonna go with Sweden because German, like I call it the German meta. You play a lot of like stun decks, and then we should just run you over. So I'm
Oh
gonna
god.
go with
Oh,
Sweden.
I guess you just put up with no, with X-Sabers, that destroys with Hyunlei. that I'm
Yeah,
crying.
exactly.
Yes, yes, no. I think it's funny, especially like Hymne, who's known as the Gravekeeper guy for a lot of people, even though he doesn't play Gravekeeper that often.
Yeah, it plays a lot of decks.
He plays a lot of decks, but yeah. Okay, we'll see. We'll see for the next Tango Mania, I guess. Okay, the last question is the most important one. What's your favorite pizza?
I'm gonna go with like a clean Napoleon. I don't know how to pronounce, like a good Napolitan
Oh, you like.
like margarita, I guess.
Oh,
But
that's the
the
best.
Sycon is gonna call me out of this because the only pizza I buy is gyro pizza with like French fries on top. Because like in my area, there's one pizza place that has like I can add €1 and get that pizza, so I'm just like full for the whole day and night. So that's what
Uh,
I buy. But I would go for like a clean, like proper pizza if I had to pick a favorite.
yes, honestly, you're like me. Then I also like this, like buffalo mozzarella, a bit of
Yeah, yeah,
basil,
for
like
sure.
perfect when I had it in Italy. Yeah. Um, this is you. Thank you for answering these questions. I put in here 10 minutes. I think we nearly took exactly 10 minutes for that segment. So now maybe the most interesting part, because after like these introductory parts, what every podcast will have, we always have a special segment dedicated to my guest. And the first guest is Janky. We talked about Catsith, so I want to talk a bit about the Catsith Chaos Tengu Deck that you and Psychon and maybe other people invented. I know, for example, one person called Lamp from Germany, who was the German national champion also in 2016. I think he played the Catsith kind of deck way back in the day, also like in 2011. In real life, a different version, but he tried it. But it was never like super successful, right? So my big question, like I have a lot of questions to you, but I think the first thing maybe we need to talk about is why did normal chaos not work? Like chaos was a known deck. Chaos did top wise, so with dimensional alchemist and all that stuff. Is there a reason why you think that in the online tournaments it never performed at all?
I think it's because people coped on Dimensional Alchemist mainly because I just think it's so weak in the current format just because of Ryo is so like Ryo is such a powerful card in this like current meta game, I'd say. And if you see Caius, I mean Ryo, like everywhere, you're gonna struggle with an 1800 beater. And not only that, the card is also very like slow. And when you have like your first turn, you're gonna banish and you banish a pot of duality. It's just over from there basically because you lose so much tempo. And also in Tengu Plant, you have a lot of ways to just get rid of the card without actually destroying it. So I'd say there's a lot of factors, but the main factor is how people built the deck with like a dimensional alchemist focus. So it's not necessarily that regular like different chaos versions doesn't work, but just how people try to build it with the chaos dimensional alchemist focus. I think there are other chaos versions that could work, but I think yes, dimensional alchemist is too slow for
Yeah.
Tengu.
Unfortunately, I can tell you, I love Dimensional Alchemist. I think it's one of the coolest cards ever. I just love every card that floats. It's kind of why
Yeah,
I
yeah, it's a
started with
cool
TG
board.
in the beginning. I just love floating. I think I love the idea of cards not being a minus and then having 1-for-1 traps and just trading easily. But I can see because um we can talk about the strength of chaos because chaos does have strength. Like a lot of people are also drawn to chaos, right? As a deck because of
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
BLS Chaos Sorcerer, right? And these cards are still super strong in this format, right?
Yes, so I'd say like one of the strengths with the chaos is if you just take cards like in a vacuum, for example, Master Hyperion, it's a super strong card, obviously, just effect and how you
Yeah.
can drop it. And if any deck could run a Master Hyperion, like if Master Hyperion was just like banish one monster and then you can remove monsters to like that would be the most broken card ever because you could play it in any deck. But the same thing goes like kind of Chaos Orc is not as strong as Master Hyperion, but it's very strong just being able to banish a face-up monster. And you can't play it in any deck, obviously, but you just need darks and lights to play it. And Torghast is such a like ridiculously strong card in this format, and Veiler is just a natural light monster. Ryo is pretty good, so like there's a lot of good light and dark monsters that you can play, which makes Chaos Orc just a natural. Like if you could play Chaos Orc in TG, just be able to drop it by removing two TGs, and
Yes.
you could play more monsters like probably, then that card would be such a like instant boss monster, I guess. So
Yeah, and I think you explained pretty well also why maybe there is or was never like a big need for like a real chaos deck, like the chaos decks we all know and love with Dimensional Alchemist,
Yeah,
maybe even Breaker. I don't know what other decks you could play because you have Tour Guide and you have Effect Veiler and you have
yeah, exactly.
Ryo, and these together with BLS and maybe Chaos Orc already form a deck, right? Because that's like kind of the backbone of a lot of strong Tengu decks. Tengu Plants plays Tengu and Veiler, plays Tour Guide and Veiler and Ryo. Um, what other decks do we have? Like all of the Catsith deck we'll talk about later. We have a lot of like these janky decks. We talked about Worms. Maybe even Worms will play Ryo and Tour Guide and BLS in the future because it's just a strong combination.
Yeah, for sure. I
But
think like any deck that has either a lot of dark cards or a lot of light cards can easily like splash in the rest to at least play Black Lost Soldier, which is a broken card, but
yes.
also play possibly Chaos Orcs.
Oh yeah, yes. Pero in chat mentioned Chaos Heroes. Like even Heroes
Yeah, yeah,
started
for
to
sure.
play BLS and Darks because BLS and Tour Guide are such amazing cards. I'm
Yeah.
Maybe I'll have someone on here to talk about Chaos Heroes because I never believed in the deck because I'm the skill rank kind of guy, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah.
Yeah, I'll even that and it does perform a lot. Like, and it's also another like I want to see still like scraps with Tour Guide in the future. Not sure if that works, but even TG played Tour Guide sometimes. I've seen that.
Yeah, I see Warrior as like the great equalizer in the format
Yeah.
because obviously we have decks that are stronger and weaker, but a lot of like rogue decks, if they can play Tour Guide, they at least have a very strong normal summon that other
Yeah.
decks also have. So
Yes.
it's the great equalizer, I guess.
Yes, I agree. So, the big question is, we talked about, hey, Chaos always was a deck people loved and played a lot, right? Especially in the beginning of Tengu Plant format. Every tournament you saw a few Chaos decks. If you go to real life Tengu tournaments, you always see Chaos decks because people just like these kind of decks and always played them. But they didn't perform. So was that like a reason you came up with the Catsith Chaos deck? I'll show it on. I show one version of the Catsith Chaos on stream. It's not the last one you played, but I think it's one of the ones you've played in the tournament before.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'd say like there's always room. Like I wouldn't play two Kushana Scapegoat in my current version because I think Upstart Goblin is just the better. We could talk for 7 hours about Upstart
Yeah.
Goblin, but either way, I don't think there's room for any like of that. But the thing with my deck is I didn't really start off trying to play Chaos, even though I played Chaos Orcs in the first iteration in Tengu format. But I know Saikon made in his Tengu Tears videos, he talked about Catsith and like the beginnings. So if you're interested in that, you can watch that video to get even more. But it started out in 2011 where I just wanted to play like a fun cat deck. And I tried to make it work. Like I played Wind Up Kitten, and I played Catsif and Lock Cat, and it was just kind of a meme deck. And even though it was a meme deck, I tried to make it as competitive as possible. Like I didn't just play a lot of cat cards and nothing else. I played eventually when Tour Guide was reprinted. I played Tour Guide. I played Spirit Reaper, and like tried to make a consistent deck, I guess, with the goal of playing Unicorn. So then when I started playing this format, that was the same goal. Like I just wanted to play my favorite card, which is Unicorn, and like Catsif, and try to make it work. Because I've always played with Catsif and discard traps because I think it's very strong. It wasn't that strong in 2012 because the power creepiest. Like if you're gonna face Insectors or wind ups, you're gonna struggle no
Yeah.
matter what you do. But when I came back to Tengu format, I realized the format was a lot slower, and then just having Wing Blast and Catsif, which is a strong combination in itself, and also Tour Guide being able to bring out Kushano, and I'd say that like Tour Guide synergy is probably one of the best deck, except for arguably Archfiend, since you can bring out the Archfiend card and then you make drag
Fall,
like the Archfiend spell
falling
card.
down, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, falling down. Like so, supposedly that's a stronger combination. But I'd say like being able to grab Kushano is such a strong combination in itself. And that's the first iteration in Tengu format had Lockcat, and then Psychon, he was like, Darkbug is a card, and I was like, no way, what's this card? And then I started playing with Darkbug. I don't think Darkbug is that good for multiple multitude of reasons, but I it being a dark just made the chaos engine even more natural. And when I started trying to optimize the deck in Tengu format, I just realized that okay, so Chaos Orc, that's how you win a lot of the times. So I moved away from Unicorn because even though Unicorn is very strong in the goal of the Catsith Chaos deck is basically to trade resources back and forth, which is a very interesting playstyle. Like not many decks in Tengu, like you have the traps decks where you just trade one for one, but those decks don't have the same agency because if you face agents with like a regular TG deck, for example, you can blow them out with your traps, but it's gonna be more hoping your opponent doesn't just overwhelm you. The same way with Catsif, where you can like wing blast one of their back rows and then pop their Ryo, and then you summon your own guy and you take like tempo control of the deck of the game. So there's a lot of factors that makes the deck like enjoyable to play, which I'd say. But when it comes to realizing that okay, the chaos part that's the strongest part of the deck, and then I started focusing even harder on that. And the good thing about chaos when you have a lot of light monsters, which I think, for example, worms could also abuse, but not as good as Catsif, is that you only really need one dark monster because then you drop Chaos Orc and it replaces itself. So
yeah. I get that. That's a big issue with the light monsters. And there was always a big issue with light monsters, even back in Go times, right? That you didn't have that many good light monsters. That maybe still the Warrior Lady, which removes itself most of the time. So
yeah.
Ryo exists now, I guess. It's a good thing.
And also, I think Catsif and Baylor being level 1 tuners is so strong in like being able to drop a Sork, banish their card, and then summon a level 1 tuner and make either Ancient Sacred Vibe and an OTK them, or you make the Arcanite Magician, which is such a strong card if you can make it, and obviously Black Rose if that's important. And I think Ancient Fairy Dragon is also an option to play. I just don't have space in my extra deck. So there's a lot of strengths just playing Catsif together with the Chaos cards, because being a level 1 light tuner is very interesting. And then obviously, since you trade resources the whole match, if you can manage to drop the Unicorn in the correct state, you just win. Like Unicorn is the most powerful card in the game in a very low resource intensive game.
Yes, and I know that. Yeah, like I'm not sure if you've played these kind of versions, but I know Tegalik, another player, he always try to make unicorn control, like how I call
Yeah,
it,
for
work
sure.
with like three Jaw of Greed and Reckless Greed and like cards to manipulate your own hand size a bit more, even to make cards not work.
Yeah, I think that version, like I played more into that version from the beginning, obviously, and then I moved away from it. And I had a lot of discussions with Take a Look about just Dark Bug and such, because the problem with Dark Bug is that it's a dark, so obviously it should be good with Chaos Orc, but the problem is you don't really you can't do anything with it unless you have the Kushano engraved. And if you have the Kushano, you probably already have a tour guide.
Yeah.
And then if you have a tour guide in Kushano, Fabled Lurry would just be the better card in that. Like if you focus on Unicorn, but I don't think Fabled Lurry is very good either. But I think there could be room to like try to make a Unicorn turbo work, but I'm not being convinced in what I've seen so far, I guess.
Yeah. Sorry. It's interesting. It's super interesting how you made this deck work and talked about that. So, we have a comment from chat who said from Pere he wants to make quick draw Catsith work.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of like different. Once Catsif started to get some like real traction outside of me and Tegalik playing it, it was people who were like, "Oh, I'm gonna make like Dragoonity Catsif
Oh
or
yeah,
Hero Catsif or like the different versions," and I'm not being convinced of any of those, because the thing with Catsif, especially, I've also seen a lot of Piper Catsif, and the problem is if you have a regular Piper deck, Tragoedia is just the best card. I realized someone wrote earlier about Tragoedia instead of Spy, but the problem with Tragoedia in the Catsif deck is you always trade down resources to try to simplify the game state, and then you don't have like any cards in your hand, and you also don't have that good levels because you don't want to discard a Ryo most of the time. You don't want to discard a tour guide. You could discard a Kushano, but like you don't have that much room to take over your opponent's monsters. So I think that's also a factor that just makes
Yeah.
Tragoedia not the best card in the deck, which also makes the Piper like synergy worse.
Ah. Yeah, I get that. And I think but I think it's interesting because that's also a point I have on my list. It seems like everyone loved the deck, right? If I look at like a representation of decks, I'd
Yeah,
say
yeah, for sure.
from what I've seen, I think Catsith is number 2 or 3 often in like a lot of tournaments. I think overall it's number 3 right now behind Agent and Plants, and I think it may stay that way, right? Because everyone loves Chaos decks. Do you have any other reason why people love this deck and play it that much? Like it's not only you; it's like new people coming to the coming to format. Wow, that deck is cool. I'll play it.
Yeah, I think just because of the play style. Because there's no better feeling than being able to like play Wing Blast in the end phase, pop their card, disrupt them with Catsith and everything. And also just being able to drop a lot of chaos monsters. Like it's similar. You have a lot of boss monsters available in your deck. And the other thing I think, just when people realize that this deck could actually compete with agents and Tengu Plants, I wouldn't say it's better by any means, but it's at least competitive in that regard. And that makes the deck's playstyle a lot different than those decks because like Tengu Plant is a combo deck and Agents is like an aggressive, like you do a lot of like similar lines. You don't have that much room to do weird stuff. While Catsif is just a control deck. Well, not really a control deck, I'd say, but at the same time, it's kind of is. I don't know, like game theory terms, I guess. But the thing that makes the deck so fun to play, I'd say, is just being able to do stuff that no other deck kind of can do.
Yeah.
Not only like playing Wing Blast to its full potential, but also having Unicorn in your extra deck, being able to do Arcanite and Wyvern like on a different playing field. Like you can obviously make those cards in other decks, but not the same way Catsif does. So
Yeah.
I don't think he's gonna fall out of
Yeah.
favor, but
I
who knows?
I also personally think that the deck is feels different a lot of times,
Yeah,
and I
it
think
just
that's
feels different.
yeah. So I think that's also what people draw to Tango Plants because I think Tango Plants also can feel different, but Tango Plants feels different in another way because it basically had the Ryo beatdown mode or the Lone Fire Dandy mode. I think like two kind
Yeah.
of different modes they play. Agent is pretty similar, and these stunny control decks, like I say, TG heroes, they do have a lot of intricacies, but often still play similar kind of games. Right? It's like, hey, I beat you down and control you with my traps. And Catsith, you can do like everything. You can like do Ryo beatdown. You can do Wing Blast, one of the most fun cards ever because it can do so many things. It can break your
Yeah, for
opponent. It
sure.
can, I don't know, disrupt their play. It can put set cards back to the deck that you know that are bad. You know, so many interesting. They can put Treeborn back on the deck against Monarchs. I've seen that once. So like,
Yeah, and also one thing I think people like when I played against Bluetooth in the first round yesterday when I played the TTC, I was like, oh no, Catsif, I don't know what to do because the deck is just when you have the correct cards in your hand, the deck is just so oppressive to play against because I knew he had one Catsif because he searched it, so I couldn't do anything with my Dragoon in the deck because I knew about okay, he's gonna Wing Blast and then
yeah.
he's gonna pop something, and I think that makes the deck just fun to play because you feel like you have control, but you also constantly have to switch the game plan around because you can't just sit with your Ryo and just win most of the time at least, and you can't just like make a Leviathan because you have to take some risks and also try to advance your own game plan while thinking about what your opponent can do.
Yes, and I think one big thing, in my opinion, from a not play, I think I played like only 5 games of Captive myself yet, so I'm like not most experienced person, but I think it's like super difficult to find sideboard cards against it. Like all of these
Yeah, yeah, so
big decks, I think heroes and gravekeepers are super easy to side against. Like these decks can be quite strong, but if they're the strongest deck in the format, they get destroyed by side decks. Think Agent, you kind of know what to side against. Tengu Plant, you also know that you put in the Maxis. But what do you do against Catsith? Like I talked so much with Hymne, what to do in Gravekeeper against Catsith. Do we play Light Imprisoning Mirror? Question mark. Like this kind of stuff we thought about. Because what do you do? Because there are not too many good cards. Maybe like Macrocosmos, but even that is not good because there's so many outs to it.
Yeah, I think that that's one of the strengths that Catsith has, that you don't really have any like cards to shut down the deck with. I'd say the best card, like generally against Catsith, is Veiler, but at the same time they could just summon Ryo and beat you down with it, or like force out you Veiler the tour guide, and then they still have a Dark in the Grave, so they can drop Sork later. Like it's very hard to deal with. I'd say the only card that's really like on paper good against Catsith, like anything they do, is Case Trap Hole.
Yeah,
But not only that, but the problem with Case Trap Hole is that it costs live. So then you go low against Catsith, and it becomes very dangerous when they have Sork and Wyvern and everything. And yeah, it's hard to deal with. And I think that's one of the strengths that the deck has.
Yeah,
No like obvious options.
I think currently one of the cards that the community kind of decided on to board more and more, and I think one reason Catsith is Black Horn of Heaven, because I think it's okay against Catsith. It's like not destroying it. It's just an okay card in my opinion.
Yeah.
But it's also strong against other decks, so I think at least from what I've seen in side decks, it's getting more and more play. And I think Catsith is one of the reasons, because it's one of the cards, yeah, you can put it in. It's not like, do I now put in Lance because it's sometimes good against Wing Blast or not?
I agree.
Yeah.
It's a decent card too. Same goes with Bottomless, but that has other like weaknesses if they have lands, for example. So
yes, and like our chat says, also Blackhorn is insane versus agents and Karakuri. It also has other implications, which why people start to play it. I personally, it's my tip for people listening. I often side in MSTs against Catsith if I don't play MST, because I think Wing Blast is one of their strongest cards, and I want to hit the Wing Blast in the end phase. It's not always working, but I think the card is good.
Yeah, I also think the thing with MST is that then you can disrupt their plan. Since if they Wing Blast your back row in the end phase, you can chain it. Because it's just so, like, even if you side, for example, Black Horn of Heaven, if they Wing Blast your Black Horn of Heaven in the end phase, they pop your monster, and then they drop their Sork and start beating you, and then you draw a dead card. So, like, that's one of the things that makes siding annoying against Catsith, I'd say.
Yes, and that's, I think, one of the good things, because I don't also think that it has, like, a super great matchup. If you look at the top decks where you have agents who have some matchup, it almost always wins, and same with like Gravekeeper, or I'm not sure if Plants is like that. Maybe the more I think about it, I think Catsith has a lot of similarities to Plants.
Yeah, for sure. It doesn't really have any bad matchups or good matchups, I'd say, because some decks, like for example, Catsith has the luxury of not having to main deck MST, and even if you face like Dimensional Fissure or like something like that in the main deck, you can still out it pretty easily, and not a lot of decks have that versatility without having to like main deck cards that can be dead against other matchups.
Yes, I agree. That's something maybe we can talk about in a different kind of podcast. The idea of how important is MST and when to main and when to side deck it, because I think it's super interesting also for these stunny kind of decks, when to main and when to side deck MST.
Yeah, for example, in that build where I played the TTC1, I chose not to side deck 3 MSTs. And I don't think it's the correct choice necessarily, because if you face Gravekeeper or Dragoonity, you want to have 3 MSTs. But Catsith is one of those decks that could get away with siding 2 MSTs, and I don't think any other decks can really do that.
Maybe Heroes? I'm not sure.
Yeah, maybe Heroes, that's true, with 3 Sparks.
Spark is kind of like an MST.
True.
So if I would ask you personally, what do you think is the place of Catsith in the current Tengu meta game? Do you have like a hey, this is tier 1, the best deck in the format, or do you have something like that?
I kind of agree with Sycon's tier list where the best deck is Agents, then Tengu Plants, and then Catsith. I would put it in the third spot, but I think there's a kind of big gap between Tengu and Catsith. Well, not a massive gap, but I still think it's noticeable. Like, you're gonna struggle more with Catsith compared to Tengu, but you also have more versatility in a tournament. Like, Catsith is probably always gonna go like positive. If you play out 7 rounds, you're probably at least gonna get four free if you can play the deck properly. And I don't think Cat is like that much better than, for example, TG or Heroes, but I still think it's better than those decks too. So I would put it like in the middle of the tier 1 decks, if you could say it like that.
Okay, you see it. If that is true, we'll never know because tier lists are just fun discussion points.
Yeah, of course.
But if it's true, it shows how important it is to think of new decks, because I think that's why I also wanted to talk to you in our first episode, because you showed that innovation and thinking like behind the typical line that all other players thought can be interesting and can be important. I mean, I know you innovated for a lot of other decks. I know you play like your not wind up, the Mist Valley deck. Do you want to talk a bit of how you innovate, or how your process is to, hey, how do you think about new strategies?
Yeah, so what I always look in when it comes to like cards is what can this deck do uniquely? And it's obviously a very broad term, but some decks, if you like analyze what can they do, like what does these archetype cards do? And sometimes it's just like, okay, these are just weaker versions of other archetypes mainly, or sometimes. And then obviously most archetypes still have like unique selling points. For example, if you take Worms, for example, just having Nebula as a trap card, that's a unique selling point for that deck, because it's just such a ridiculous card. And the same goes with like when I looked at Catsith. Okay, Wing Blast, Catsith, Unicorn, like those are unique cards that no other deck really has. And the same goes when I looked at Mist Valley and was intrigued, because if you can make Mist Valley combos work, they're just stronger than anything else in the format. The problem is that they're always free card combos, so they're not really viable tournament wise. But I always look at how like I can abuse the best points about cards, and then I just put in the tour guides and staples.
Okay, just put in the tour guides, and your deck is at least good enough to top Tengu Rumble. You heard it here.
Yeah, for sure.
You heard it here. But yeah, I can get that. So I personally, when I think about innovation, I always like, okay, my number one thing, that's just how I am is, I just want to play something I like. That's like the first thing. Hey, I like this card, I want to make it work. This is not the way to make a good deck, I want to say. But I like the idea of thinking about what is unique, what is special. So one thing I always wanted to make work is like Magic Cylinder, because I think Magic Cylinder is a special card that people don't really expect and that can do quite a lot, because in a meta game with like 2 Solemn Warnings and Judgment, everyone plays it besides maybe Agents, and some Agents lists do play it, is I think you don't have that much life points often. Oftentimes you play with like 6 or 4,000, right? And so Magic Cylinder can like nearly kill you sometimes, and you have 2 Magic Cylinders. So I'm currently trying to find like a deck that can make work of these kind of cards of, hey, maybe burning is not that bad, but like not in a chain burn kind of way, because chain burn is not viable, I think, with everyone playing Decree in the side deck.
Yeah, I think a very interesting build I saw was, if you have seen the build, but Quinning made like a macro deck.
Yeah.
And that is both Magic Cylinder and then the DD Dynamite, just to surprise your opponent with the burn. I'm not sure it's strong, but like it's interesting to think about, like how people could abuse different things in the meta.
Yes, my idea was, I can tell you, because I also thought about Tour Guide, what the third thing. Tour Guide can make Granosaurus. Granosaurus does 1,000 damage, and then you can tribute it with a Kurenai trap card to do 3,000 with 1 card, or with 2 cards, kind of. But yeah, it didn't work out in the tournament. But it played funny. It played a lot better than I thought it would. I lost game one only because I played against this one deck who played 3 DD Crows with Volcanics. I was unhappy. But yeah, I think this is a good thing, how to think about decks. You know, what I want to accomplish? Does any deck already accomplish that? And if not, which cards do accomplish what I want to do?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. And also not be afraid of like losing out in the beginning. Because, for example, as Saikon said in the Catsith video, that I tried to make this work for like several years between 2011 and 2012, 2013. And then I came back to like the format in 2023 and I played it every single tournament for months. And the first person who picked it up quite early was Tegalik when he started playing, but then it took several more months before people even started looking at the deck. And now it's an established meta deck. So I think that's just don't give up just because you don't see instant results or because people don't understand your ideas. Like there's nothing, no shame about just trying to make stuff work. And also another thing I'd say that I wouldn't say Catsith is the hardest deck to play by any means, but it's quite a hard deck to play if you like want to play it properly and perform good with it. Because there's so many situations where you're like, oh, I discarded this card with Wing Blast, or I set this card and I just lost because of it. Like there's very small things you can do that just makes your whole game lose. And that's why if you play it for the first, like if you make a random deck, you may need a few months to just optimize the deck list and learn to play the deck in a different way.
Okay. So you said trial and error. Maybe not go to the tournament, expect to win right away, and then lose the first match, and your X1 and just drop. But maybe just continue to play with your decks. And one thing I've also learned, I mean, that's something maybe it's a given because how much you talked about Psychon. Try to get a friend or two to talk to, right? Because
for sure.
Testing together always helps because sometimes you're like stuck in one idea. It's like me, you know. I had like 1 or 2 ideas, especially like when I first played Gravekeeper. I thought you need to play 2 Descendant, right? You always play 2 Descendant. It's the best card. You can make classes of it. And then I talked to Hymne and Halfa, and they just sent me the deck list. I tried it. I think they're right. I think they're just totally right with what they're saying. So yeah, helping talk to people is also more fun on the
for sure.
because playing alone is possible but not that fun.
And I also think like not trying the same things others have tried, even if it looks like the better version. For example, if we take Dragoonity, I've been pushing very hard to just play 3 Dragoonity cards in my list. And the reason why is because if you look at it, I think Red Ice is the best opener, especially post side deck, because if your opponent has a lot of DD Crows, Maxis, Veilers, especially Veiler and Maxi, they can't really do anything against a Red Ice first turn. But if you summon the Ducks and they just Veiler or Maxi you can't really do what you attempt to do. So Red Dice as a first turn play kills your opponent's strategies most of the time. And then the problem is if you have a lot of Ducks, you're just gonna draw cards that doesn't really do anything because you'd rather just summon Red Dice and like commit with that.
Yes. Yes, I think that's also like sometimes it's also okay to be on a tunnel. You know, like I wanted to make Grunel work. I love Maclot Grunel. I think that's a great card.
Yeah.
Don't play it if you want to win, but I think it's a nice card. So I always try it, and it's just nice to also be right sometimes. You know, to just win because it feels.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing I've learned. It does feel a bit better when you win with your deck or with the deck. It doesn't have to be the deck you created because, you know, decks are finite. A lot of strategies are already discovered, but like the deck that feels like you, for me at least, it feels a lot better than like winning with agents, for example.
Yeah, for sure. Like I'm not really interested in playing agents or Tengu Plants, and it's not because I don't think they're good, obviously. I just prefer playing other decks, and I don't think there's any shame in playing agents, the standard list, playing it every time, but that's not what I'm like interested in when it comes to this format. And that's the same thing. Like I played Mist Valley so many tournaments and just lost every time basically. I topped once, but that was with the least bad version, I guess, because I also made a Mist Valley FTK deck, and then I played it in 2 tournaments and
Oh, I
just lost
remember.
every round.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I also like after I won Tengu Mania, and I think I went like 5-0 in Rumble with Psychic. So don't ask me how. And I won at Kermit Karakuri. I was number 1 in the ladder, and then I thought I don't want to play this kind of deck. And that was when I started to play Herald and Volcanics and Gadgets and
yeah,
something else. Gladbeast, but Gladbeast did work out well for some reason. Um, and yeah, and I said, yeah, it's fun, and I did learn a lot because that's something we can all agree on. You can learn from mistakes, I guess.
yeah, for sure.
The, uh, my advice always don't be salty.
And especially when it comes to like playing weird decks, that obviously if you only care about winning, it's gonna be feel bad to just play weird decks and then lose. But that's not always the point of the like. Just try to enjoy yourself when you play the decks.
Yes,
And
yes.
when it came to Mist Valley, for me, I just came up with a lot of like really cool combos, and I wanted to make them work as good as I could,
Yeah.
because I still think based on the other Mist Valley lists, they don't really explore the weird interactions you can do with the field spells.
Yeah.
So maybe one day in the future someone
Yeah.
else would make
I,
Mist Valley actually work
yeah,
for me.
I'm pretty sure for maybe for the next tournament or for a tournament after, or now I spot myself, I bring out Tengu gadgets again because that's the deck I just believe in. I always believed in. I think it's unfortunately better if you go a bit back in time, like just a bit back in time. Maybe even it's better before Exceeds out or before Tour Guide is out, especially. Uh, or to get with Leviathan, so Exceeds. Yeah, it's. But I just love the deck. I played in real life so much, and doesn't seem to work, but I'll try.
I just realized one thing when it came to like decks. I said that Dragoonity is the most underrated deck, and I still believe that because the deck is so strong in my opinion, and people are just not seeing it because when they think Dragoonity, they think like the Legionnaire like the standard Dragoonity build, or they maybe like expect, okay, you have red dice, but that's not really that consistent. But with Tour Guide, the deck is a different deck. But I'd say the most underrated deck actually is Genex. Like Cycle made a Genex list, and
Oh
not
yeah,
only
yeah.
like not the 46 card Genex like list, but the second version where he plays like the optimized list. I
Yeah.
think just maybe this is gonna be a hot take, but I think Genex is just a better gadget deck because with Ultimate
Because it
Offering,
does something. Yeah.
yeah, you can do anything with the deck. Like it's so insane. I
Yes.
think it's gonna be like maybe it's not gonna be a tier 1 deck, but I think it could actually like if people start picking up Genex and learn to play it and optimize the deck even further, I think the deck could become like one of the better rogue decks actually. Like I think Genex could be better than Zombies and Lightsword and like even Karakuri and X-Saber maybe, who knows?
Yes, Janky is too attractive for Cam. Just said that.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, and I wanted to try the Gen X deck too because it's because I like gadgets and I don't believe in it in the format, even though I'm the biggest gadget enjoyer ever. So, think we've talked a lot about Catsith, and we think we are coming to time. I don't want to like let people listen to us to 2 hours, even if we
Yeah,
could.
that sounds
But let's give us 5 more minutes or like a few more minutes to talk about what's up next in Tengu. So we'll have Tengu Mania 7. I think that's the next big tournament coming up that everyone is prepping for because Tengu Mania is, like I said, number 1 qualifier for World Championships. So if you want to become the World Tengu Champion, at least not the official one, there's no official World Championship, but we call it like that. You can play it, and also you can win a cool playmat and you can win some money. So that's why most people join there. And this is most of the time the most competitive big online Tengu tournament. Do you have any expectation? Like, what do you expect people to play there?
That's a good question. I think, as always, like every time there's a big tournament, people are gonna play more what they consider safe options, and usually that's card decks like agents. Not only not that often Tengu, even though people always play the deck, but I would at least expect a few agent decks, and also like probably a few either heroes, gravekeeper. Like it always depends. There's a lot of rotation, but I think I'm gonna bring out Dragoonity again. I just think the deck is too strong, but I need to work on my list because right now it's not optimized enough, I guess.
Yeah, I can tell you I'm still discussing. I'm still discussing if I want to run it back with a Gravekeeper list because I can tell. How did I play? I think I played TG in the first one I played. In Tengu Mania 4. I forgot what I played in Tengu Mania 5, to be honest. And in the TCG tournament, then I played Gravekeeper. Then I played TG again because I am just super annoyed that no one plays TG. Or no one plays enough TG to like handle the deck. It seems, even though I think it's a good deck, it seems no one likes it or plays it. So maybe I also bring that out today again. But I'm not the person who plays the same deck every time, so I'm not sure yet. I really am not. But I also even when I'm thinking, you see what decks I'm talking about is often like these more safe decks where I at least know how to play it. It's not, I think these are the best ones, but I know how to play them and I won't embarrass myself going 1-3. And that's something I maybe don't want to do.
Yeah, I think TG is for sure one of the stronger decks in the format. But like you said, not that many people play it. And I also think, like, this is coming from an outside perspective. I haven't labbed with TG that much. But I think TG EM1 is one of the strongest cards. Like, it's just such an insane card.
Yes.
And if people see that and try to abuse that part of the deck instead, like, I'm not gonna say that TG stun is the bad, but I don't think it's why the deck is good. I think cards like TGMI and the floating power and the strength the deck could build around.
Yes, and you can synchro, even though it's a
yeah,
deck.
for sure.
So I'm not sure if I should call it TG stun. I always play skill drain because I'm afraid of agents, and I think the agent matchup is not that good, and I want to beat agents. That's why I put skill drain in the deck. Yeah, I always thought of playing the third EM1 instead of like the Horn of the Phantom Beast because I think it.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that card.
If it goes off, it's the most insane card in the world, but oftentimes it just breaks. It's like I'm not sure myself, even though I played 3 the last 2 tournaments and it worked out, but it's matchup dependent. If you only play against like heroes, you're like super happy to play 3, but else it's difficult. I would say my biggest expectation is that I hope we get a lot of players. Because after YCS Vegas and what I've seen people like new people trying the format, I hope that we at least get a few more new people. I always want like a 50-person online tournament because I think the biggest one we had yet was Tengu Mania 4. And Tengu Mania 4 I think had, don't ask me, 40 something players, 48, 40, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't remember it either.
Yeah. I really don't know, unfortunately. But yeah, and the other ones always had around 40, the bigger ones. So I would like to see a bit more, just because I love spreading the format. But yeah. I honestly I can't control that.
I'm really looking forward to Worlds too, because eventually, like when you have the full player list, you can start making an educated meta call in a different way. Because right now, like you can't really make a meta call except expecting like tier 1 decks to show up probably. But when it comes to like when I played the TTC finals, where I knew okay, there's gonna be 8 players, and I can try to actually figure out what's gonna show up in this event. And it's going to be a similar thing when it comes to the Worlds, because there's going to be like, I don't know, 25 players maybe, and a lot of them are going to be established, kind of, so you can actually look at what they have played before and think probably.
Oh yeah, you're 100% right. I'm looking forward to the Worlds tournament. Thank you. I think that's it for me. Do you have anything else you want to say? You want to plug yourself? I'll try to put the stuff in the description on YouTube when I upload this on YouTube. Do you have anything?
Oh, well, I don't really have. I have a YouTube channel, obviously, but I would rather if you link to Sycon's Tengu tier so they can watch the Catsith video, because I think that explains more in depth, like the actual history about the deck and how it evolved. And I think it's a very good video.
Yes, I know you also did like Catsith showcase together with photo shooting. Maybe I'll try to link that too.
Oh, right, yeah, that too. It was a bit older, so I had like worse ideas, I guess. But
it's okay also to listen to the bad ideas.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. Then I would say thank you for being here. Thank you for being my first guest of the Tactical Tengu Tales.
Yeah, thanks for hosting, and I hope to see it more. I'm gonna look forward to watching it when there's another guest.
Yes.
Really
I'm not
nice.
sure. I don't have a timing for the next one. The idea would be to have it like every 2 weeks, if possible, because I think every 1 week maybe we don't have enough content in Tengu yet, but maybe we do. We'll see. If anyone wants to join, just hit me up. I'm open for the suggestions for guests. I'm always like looking for new people to talk to. Just talk to me, and also message me if you have any other question about the Tengu Plant format. I guess if you have questions about Catsith, you can also message Janky, right? You're always open for ideas and talking.
Yeah, for sure. I'm pretty active in the Chaos channel. We don't have a Catsith channel, sadly, but I guess Chaos is basically Catsith at this point right now. So
okay, yes. Thank you, stream. I will try to rate someone. Let's see. We're not that many people, but always nice to rate people we like. Who should we go to? There's none of the Yu-Gi-Oh people. We should go to a Yu-Gi-Oh streamer, but there's none of the Yu-Gi-Oh people I follow online. So I guess just go to a friend of mine who streams weird shit. Okay, now we go to a friend of mine who streams, which I said weird shit, Baldur's Gate 3. Thank you everyone for being here, and hope you have a great rest of the week. Bye.
bye.